then Stella, and then we are going to call a halt.
Well, it's really just following up, Nick, just to clarify my understanding of your answer to Richard Baker. You were saying, and I think the evidence in the documents that the managing public money is you see the role of the accounting officer to challenge and satisfy themselves in respect of the delivery on value for money of arm's length bodies.
Well, I think I think it sets out the relative roles of the arm's length bodies, but ultimately the main accounting officer has to take responsibility. He or she will delegate accounting officer responsibilities to the arm's length body, but he or she's got to satisfy themselves that the systems, financial systems in that organisation are satisfactory, and if they're not, they need to do something about it.
Yeah, because I mean that's what it says here. It says the accounting officer, as Richard alluded to, must make arrangements to satisfy himself or herself with the accounting officer. That just was at odds with my understanding of Sir David Nicholson's evidence yesterday, where we were questioning him on very wide variations in hospital performance. We have some hospitals with 13, 14 staff per head. Per bed. We've got other hospitals where it's less than 4. We've got some hospitals where there was one which had only less than 20% of its admissions were emergency admissions. There was another where over 60% of its admissions were emergency admissions, and likewise on the consultant's contract. And his answer was that these were issues for the board, and that the Department of Health provide the tools, so it provides the tools on job planning to benchmark hospital consultants' productivity, but it is not for him to challenge the hospitals on value for money. It is an issue for the board. Whereas my impression from what it's saying here is actually that at the extremes of the range, where there are wide variations of performance, the accounting officer should be satisfying themselves that the hospital foundation accounting officer of that arm's length body has actually achieved value for money.
Well, it really comes back to what I said earlier. I think the critical thing as far as the accounting officer at the heart of the Department of Health is whether the system is working. Now, it may be that implicit in the new arrangement is the possibility of quite wide variation. That's okay if it's just the internal market
if it's understood.
Working, and the average actually is pushed up as a result. That, to me, would be a sign that the system might be working. So I think there's a distinction between, how the expenditure as a whole is delivering a better health system compared to the accounting officer at the heart of the Department for Health taking responsibility for each and every unit of delivery, which quite frankly I don't think they've ever done.
No one's saying they take responsibility for every unit. What I'm saying is, to what extent should they satisfy themselves that they understand very wide performance? As a localist, as we discussed yesterday, I fully accept there may be good reasons for variation, and in fact that's one of the reasons for localism, is to drive local initiatives and have variation. But if the person responsible is the chief exec of the NHS who is distributing the money doesn't understand why one hospital has 3 times, and perhaps it should have twice the levels of staffing, there's a good reason. But if he doesn't understand why it has 3 times, it strikes me they are at odds with what this requirement is saying, for them to say, well, we've provided the tools, it is now for the hospital board to decide whether they're using the tools. It is not for me to satisfy myself and understand why it is that they haven't used the tool, or they're at odds with the hospital. And it's not just on health. We saw it, for example, on youth offending. There was a massive variation on youth offending between Somerset and North Somerset. And there's no evidence in the report as to why there was such a variation there. And again, the department at the centre saying, well, we don't know why.
Well, I think that it's the responsibility of the accounting officer. They may not be responsible for each and every unit of delivery, but they need to understand what the system as a whole is delivering and be content with that outcome. So where there is a massive variation, I think they've really got to understand why. That doesn't mean that they should be interfering in each and every organisation, but I do think taxpayers' money, which goes through departments, it is the responsibility of the accounting officer to understand, you know, in broad terms, you know, what that money is delivering and why there are
Stephen, I'm going to
differences
move it on
in
because we're
delivery.
getting late. Austin then.